Hello. Uh, Today I want to talk about digital charisma filters, but I've got a few other things to talk about. First, a lot of AI news. Microsoft has a new AI assistant that will attend a Microsoft Teams meeting for you and summarize what happened at the meeting. So that sounds pretty awesome. And it raises the specter of everybody just sending bots to the meeting instead of anybody going physically. I think everybody would love that. Uh, Meta has taken mental imagery created by non-invasive magnetic scans of the brain. They can take the scan of the brain, and using AI, they can find out what images someone is looking at or what images they are imagining. Now, this has been discussed for decades in brain research of the type I used to do. I didn't do the direct brain measurements, but I studied the research of it. And when you look at something, there's just an image on the back of your brain. The visual cortex in the back of your brain just has a layout of it, rather like a photographic film. And when you imagine something, there's a similar thing there. So this is something that in principle has been possible for a long time, but only by surgically embedding electrodes into the brain. But now they can do it from the outside. Now, this is an early test, and it's not enormously accurate, like 70% accurate at choosing your image out of a small set of images. But it does mean if this improves more, and certainly you would expect it to improve more, this is essentially telepathy. They can find out what you're thinking. They can use it for interrogation. You could use it to decide whether people are paying attention when they're driving their car or when they're watching a lecture. You could target ads. You could play videos and measure from their brain their reaction to the video. Probably it's very interesting, and it's a big step forward to, I think, definitely before very long, we'll have helmets you can wear that will give people the ability to read your mind to some extent. Eric Adams has used AI to make robocalls in languages he doesn't speak. So now people stop him on the street and say, I didn't know you could speak Cantonese, and they think he can. So some people are saying this is deceptive and he should have informed people. That's possible, but I think this is certainly a tool we should all be using. The spoken word, like what I'm doing right now, ought to be automatically translated into other languages. I think this is inevitable. And anyway, that's a good thing. OpenAI says they are building an AI image detector that will be 99% accurate. Now, I don't know if that's possible, but if it is, it would certainly be very useful. There've been a generation of these AI image detectors, and they don't work. And people have just pretty much given up using them. I know college and high school teachers have been concerned if there's some way to identify AI-generated text so they can tell if students are using AI to write their homework. And I think right now there is no good tool for that either. I don't know if there ever will be, but OpenAI is the company that would do it if anybody can. So we'll see. And then the one I put the title after, very interesting, an article on ZDNet listing Gartner's top 10 strategic technology trends. And they have the usual boring things about how AI is going to get more important at the top, but at the bottom they have a list of top 10 strategic predictions. And these are unbelievable, the kind of thing that would make me think they come from some kind of nut. But Gartner is considered reputable in this business. I mean, they're very famous. So they are actually suggesting these outrageous things. By 2027, generative AI tools will be used to explain legacy business applications and create appropriate replacements, reducing modernization costs by 70%. Now, that sounds reasonable. AI would be good for doing things like rewriting your old COBOL code in some more modern language, things like that. By 2028, enterprise spending on battling malinformation will surpass $30 billion, cannibalizing 10% of marketing and cybersecurity budgets. That also seems quite reasonable to me. As we see the fake news and the conspiracy theories and everything growing, it'll probably affect everybody. You'll have to spend a lot of your money resisting it. This one, by 2028, the rate of unionization among knowledge workers will increase by 1,000%, motivated by the adoption of generative AI. I'm very skeptical about that one. I think everyone is thinking that generative AI is going to actually replace knowledge workers. As far as I can tell, it's not going to do anything more than just make your knowledge workers a little more efficient. I'm now using Bard to help me write code and answer technical questions, and it's just another alternative to the way I used to use Google to help me do that. I really don't think it's greatly rocking the job market, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, here's one. But in 2026, 30% of workers will leverage digital charisma filters to achieve previously unattainable advances in their careers. Now, I don't know what a digital charisma filter is, but I'm thinking of what I've heard about TikTok. Now, I haven't used TikTok, but I've read articles, and what they say is if you record a video at TikTok, it will automatically enhance your image and make you look younger and more beautiful. And that this happens to everybody, and this is part of why everybody looks so good on TikTok. And so I would imagine that you could use that for Zoom. And since most people are working remotely now in the information field, you could have an avatar that looks wonderful, and you could probably even have something that rephrases your rude, offensive comments as dignified, polite comments. People are already using that in email. Please find a polite way to tell my boss that I'm not going to do what he told me to do, or I think he's an idiot. So that's the first thing that comes to mind when I see the phrase digital charisma filters. So this one might well be true. And by 2028, there will be more smart robots than frontline workers in manufacturing, retail, and logistics due to labor shortages. Now, this one is just very hard to believe. By 2026, 50% of G20 members will experience monthly electricity rationing, turning energy-aware operations into either a competitive advantage or a major failure risk. Electricity rationing? I haven't heard of this anywhere. All right, anyway, very interesting stuff from Gartner. The kind of stuff that I would write off as science fiction if it weren't from such a reputable source. So see if any of that happens. The hacker that leaked 1 million genetic profiles from 23andMe of people who were more than 1% or more Jewish, very disturbingly, seeming essentially to be promoting a Nazi agenda, has now dumped 4 million genetic profiles. And this is exactly why when these genome sequencing companies came out about 10 years ago, everybody immediately, all the privacy-oriented people I know, and my instant reaction was, you ought to be out of your mind. Putting that information in the hands of a company is going to lose it because of exactly this. An oppressive government will decide to hunt down everybody of a certain race. The insurance companies will find people with genetic predisposition to a disease. The eugenics people will try to find the people with genetic predisposition to be superior soldiers and recruit them into the army. Just a whole bunch of nightmare scenarios come out. And there is no conceivable benefit for this. The medical use of genetic testing is the only thing that would seem to justify it at all. And that, I think, is in its infancy. And you get very little useful medical information out of it. And if you put your genetic profiles up there, you compromise not only yourself, but everybody in your family tree who has, of course, similar genes. Anyway, I was amazed to see this on YouTube. Now, in the last couple about YouTube on Mastodon, in the last couple of weeks, I play YouTube videos all the time. I play music in the background while I work. And about 2 weeks ago, it started popping up saying ad blockers are forbidden on YouTube. And I found that if I'm using Brave and if I just turn off the ad blocking and turn it back on again, that goes away, doesn't come back for like another day. Then I read an article, they're saying if you keep on using ad blockers, we will just cancel your ability to see YouTube entirely. I'm like, well, that would be annoying. So then it went away. And maybe because of this, Alexander Haniff has said he filed a formal complaint against YouTube with the Irish Data Protection Commission for their illegal deployment of ad block detection technologies. So like almost everything on the internet, the regulation comes from Europe. America is helpless because of the corruption of our government, essentially, and the lobbyists purchased by the rich tech companies. We appear to be completely helpless at regulating tech companies in any way, but in Europe, they are not shy at all. And after GDPR, there's a bunch of regulations. And he claimed that under Article 5.3 of 2002 58 EC, YouTube are legally obligated to obtain consent before storing or accessing information already stored on an end user's terminal equipment, unless it is strictly necessary for the provisions of the requested service. And he claims that, therefore, they are not allowed to detect your use of ad block. And apparently in 2016, the EU Commission confirmed in writing that ad block detection requires consent. So that is interesting. And as a YouTube consumer, that will make my life easier. It does throw into question the economic model that underlies the American internet, which all relies upon covert invasion of your privacy. But, and even though we are getting a lot of free services for that, it might be a good idea if it is blocked legally. It probably is not a good idea in the long run. And I'll just mention there's Google-based malvertising, where when you search for certain products to download them, it will put up fake ads sending you to sites that look very, very close to the real site to trick you into downloading malware-laden versions of KeyPass and Notepad++. And Dan Gooden had an article where he explained the KeyPass site even appears to have exactly the right URL up in the URL bar, because they've added Unicode characters that look almost identical to the normal character, the letter K. So you really, even a fairly sophisticated person, would probably be fooled by this. And it really is up to Google to filter their ads better. But this keeps happening. Just like there's tons of malware in the Google App Store for Android, Google is just not very effective at cleaning malicious actors out of their system. And it's a thing to be aware of. I remember years ago, one of my friends got infected because the AOL account would lock this person out. And when you would search for the AOL help desk, the top 10 hits for the AOL help desk would all be fake tech support sites. And this keeps on happening. Google does clean them out eventually, but they seem to leave them up long enough to hurt a lot of people before they notice and clean them out. So that's it for this one. And there'll be another one on Tuesday.